Welcome back to the Tavern, friends. So before you recruit some new minions for the battle, let me welcome you to episode 13 of Tavern Tales, a Hearthstone Battlegrounds podcast. I am your host, Tumbly Drunk, and tonight we'll be taking a look at some recent developer Q&As. We'll debut a new segment as we look to choose between two different heroes, and of course we will share our latest minion spotlight and so much more. Celesteline, you are always a person to blame, and you should just be accustomed to that pretty much every single week for the foreseeable future until I say otherwise, which will never happen, so sit tight. So before we get into the news and introduce you to my co-host, let me just quickly take a moment to thank everyone who is joining us tonight on Twitch for our live show, since we did recently start on Twitch as we were audio only here in recent months. And of course, we gotta thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host, Ed and R. And Ed, we've had quite a bit going on. A lot of things kind of been juggling back and forth with our other shows. A lot happening within Overwatch. But, I really feel like ever since these most recent weeks, we've probably been balancing a lot more Battlegrounds into the fold, and I don't know how you've been doing, but, we got a little bit of bragging rights over the weekend against our rival podcast, which we'll definitely be talking about, as I absolutely dumpstered on Jay from Bob's Tavern cast, but more on that lately. But how's the week been treating you in battle here?
It's been pretty good. I honestly have climbed a little. I mean, I think I ended up tonight at 5,400. Yeah, 54. So I'm not quite where you're at, but I'm getting there. I'm definitely getting there. I I'm starting to get into a foray of different builds than I'm used to.
Okay.
Which is always a nice thing. I mean, I've started to mess around with divine shields more. I'm giving demons, another go at it, non-juggler builds.
What are you trying to imply?
I'm not gonna condone juggler builds here. I will never condone that. But it's definitely been a lot of fun, and I've been taking a lot of heroes I don't normally take. I've passed on Deathwing. I've passed on Millhouse. All that stuff. I've passed on all of them. So yeah, it's really been going good.
Right.
So you've had a good one.
It was a pretty good week. I have been keeping pace in regards to my overall climb on the primary account. I don't have my rating on hand, but I'm pretty sure I'm over 6,200 at this point. But I've been primarily focusing on my alt account, which I do not have the Tavern perks on. I've been talking to a lot of friends who do not have the Tavern pass. And kind of going back and forth with them over on Twitter. And my buddy Ashanka has been pretty adamant about feeling like by not having the extra perks and having the extra two heroes options, that he is just constantly losing rated. And I was trying to see what his reasoning behind that thought process was. So I don't know if it was a case of him just feeling like maybe the tiers are not as spread out, so to speak, as I kind of made them out to be, since a lot of the average placements are fairly close together for honestly more than half of the roster currently within the hero pool at this given point. But I will say, even only having the two options, I have still come out with a net gain these past couple of weeks consecutively, and I'm getting to the point now where my alt account is just shy of 5,800. So, if I keep working at it, I might actually be able to hit 6K on the alt as well. So I want to see if I'm ever going to get to the point where that account is going to surpass what I've been doing on the main account, to kind of put an end to the debate over whether 4 is absolutely mandatory. Now that being said, I can kind of understand, people not wanting to spend the money since you don't really get rewards from Battlegrounds. But, I feel like a lot of people are kind of like blowing things out of proportion where, just because I have two extra options at times doesn't mean that I'm going to have a better pick out of the litter in this case, because there's been a lot of times, even with four, where I have four middle options, or, maybe something that's more clear cut, and the same can be said when you only have the two options. So, I don't
Hmm.
know. I feel like I'm at the point now, though, where I don't really care if I have two or four. I'm just going in to play, and I'm having a ton of fun. It's definitely been taking up a lot of my free time here as of late, obviously, with quarantine going on for everyone. So, with that being said, just stay home, play Hearthstone, and let's jump into the news.
Hmm.
So we've had a lot of things going on with the developers here this past week. We had an AMA over on Reddit. We've also seen a number of the dev team, also doing like Q&As here and there. And, the AMA didn't really cover really anything in regards to the Battlegrounds because it was primarily focusing on, the new set that just launched with the Demon Hunters arrival to constructed an arena, all that fun stuff. But we do have a couple of questions that were posted and answered in regards to Battlegrounds. So here's some of the insight that we got from Team 5 here in regards to BG. So someone had asked, will you guys ever consider hand mechanics in the Battlegrounds? I think they fit pretty well in the mode if they're done right. Then, whoever asked this added, maybe add some more dragons with hand mechanics. Now, they did kind of note, there have been certain minions that do scale by, whether it's like playing battle cries, which is either like, tribe specific or just neutral in this case. But what would your thoughts be on them adding like something like spells to Battlegrounds where it's more, I don't know if it'd be like a fast spell or anything like that, or if it's just something that would initiate at, say, like the start of combat.
Well, I mean, we already have something that kind of initiates at the start of combat
Mm-hmm.
in Prince of Mukamura. Um, and you get the secret at the beginning of each, but that's, I mean, that's different than what you're trying to get at. I don't think that they should start introducing actual spells. It would overcomplicate the whole game in my mind. And now they could probably do some simple thing, get a spell, give your minions +1/+1 this round only.
Mm-hmm.
Something simple as that, but would that really be worth it? Worth not having a minion on board to play that once? Maybe. It could be a little bit too broken endgame as well, when people would just be taking spells instead of just cycling through for no reason whatsoever. Um, so it definitely is something that could be looked at. I don't know. I'm not a fan of it.
I think for me, one of the issues that I could see happening is it would kind of discourage you from actually playing certain minions within the game as well.
Mm-hmm.
Where there's a lot of situations where maybe you're not stockpiling, because really the only time you're starting to stockpile a lot of minions is, if it's going to be a token. So you essentially bought something for 3 and they're going to sell it for 2 on the next turn. Or you were looking to cycle battle cries for like your Calicos build, or things of that nature. Like let's say you're running Murloc and you got a couple of Felfins as well as your Seers and cycling that way with your brand on board.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I like how everything has been playing so far, and I'm worried that if they keep adding like different, we'll say abilities or spells in this case, that's gonna throw a little bit too much into like the thought process, and really early on, you're just having to have to think about that much more in that span of, before when the rope runs out. So I don't want to get into a situation where I'm having to think about, okay, how many times am I going to refresh Bob's Tavern? How am I going to prioritize what I'm playing that turn? Then I have to worry about board positioning, and then you just keep adding layers upon layers, and then suddenly you're running out of time to take what could be a very pivotal turn in a lot of situations, especially when you get into the late game, when more times than not you have more stuff that can be put in play to scale what you have in your warband at that point.
Mhm.
But who knows?
Remember the good old days when we complained that they needed to cut back the time in between rounds?
That was
We're like,
back when we were just throwing things on the board all willy nilly.
exactly. And now it's like, yeah, no, this is good. This is good. Let's go ahead and keep this time frame right in this area. Yeah, spells could definitely add a bunch of complications. I unless it's part of the hero power, like Prince, I don't see it really being happening. You know, I don't know. That's just me. Now, you could do something like that that doesn't affect the actual game. You could add something that is a spell that you buy, just like a minion, that doesn't give you a minion, doesn't buff your board, but heals you.
Okay.
Like restore, like tier 5, restore 8 health. 3 gold to restore 8 health, no minion, nothing. You know, it doesn't have to be 8 health or something of that nature. That could be something that doesn't affect the actual board, but is beneficial to you.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something. I do think we're going to get some form of healing. It's probably sometime in the near future. Spells could be it.
Could be. I mean, it's either, straight damage, another way to buff your board. Although that would be a little bit too similar to the battle cries, or potentially healing. Especially, with that recent bug, where we actually got to see plus healing numbers noted in green in the stats there. But who knows? So the next person had asked in Battlegrounds, will I ever be able to put my faith in the light again? Which, they're talking about Tyrion coming back into the hero rotation. And the dev said he may return one day. I mean, I would hope so. But with a new hero power. We haven't really talked about Tyrion all that much lately. And at the time he was feeling pretty good. Obviously, there were a lot of neutrals, and he was primarily going towards minions that a lot of other builds really weren't needing at the time. Do you feel now that we've added more minions to the pool now that we don't really need to even tweak just targeting those neutrals? Like, what do you think they could have planned here?
Now forgive me if it's been a while. It's whenever you play a neutral minion, buff it. Was it +1/+1 or +2/+2?
For the it was +1/+1 for
+1/+1
gold.
for 1 gold. You know what? I don't think that they're going to keep it that way. Just because we did get a bunch of new cards, but we got a bunch of new dragons, so we got a new subclass, and that that doesn't make the dragons aren't the be all end all. So what people were running before would still be dominant when it was dominant. I can't remember. Did we get any neutral cards with the dragons? Isn't the I honestly can't remember which if they were all dragons or if there were any neutrals. I want to say there was at least one neutral. And that's just not stuff that we want. I think if they bring him back the way he was, he would still be too overpowered.
Okay.
Um, yeah, especially with the way that divine shields are right now.
I'm trying to think. I know Nadina is neutral.
Mhm.
That might have been the only one I could think of off the top of my head.
I want to say one of the dragon cards. One of the dragon cards is not a dragon; it just benefits from dragons.
The Wax Rider, the one where when your dragon kills someone, it gets buffed. That's another neutral.
That is another neutral. Well, that's useless. Uh, but yeah, he would still be super powered.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they need to change him.
I think that was both of them. I'm pretty sure those were the only two neutrals with that patch.
Okay. Yeah, and then the Murloc obviously is a Murloc.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right on. So the other question that we got is in regards to adding additional tribes to Battlegrounds. They ask, are you looking into adding pirates, totems, or elementals to the Battlegrounds? How far are you in the development and implementation of new tribes here? Obviously, they're always looking for more minion types to kind of add into the fold. They did mention specifically who doesn't want to see some elementals in the Battlegrounds at some point. But they do also love the idea of totems and pirates. I know for us, we were kind of like on the fence about putting totems as a tribe. Because there's really only so much you can do. And, if they do go the healing route, I don't know how that would necessarily work with like the healing stream totem. Because everything just goes back to the health that it was, for the base value of the card anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. And spell damage is useless. I mean, you're not drawing cards. Now, granted, again, this could all be something where they make cards.
Right. Like, Syrian Totem could still work, because it could just be a start of combat, similar to, like, the Red Whelp.
Mm-hmm. God. Just trying to think. I don't even know what they could do. Now, pirates, we have talked about pirates in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Coming out. Elementals would be fun. I would not be shocked if we get a whole slew of elementals that come in here rather soon. I know they said that they have another big battleground patch coming up.
Yeah, like
mid expansion. So you got that, and yeah, elementals would be a lot of fun because elementals have some of the best synergy,
mm-hmm.
like that is in regular Hearthstone. So I'd be interested to see how they do stuff like that. Like if you played elemental last turn on your board, deal 5 damage to an enemy minion type of thing, which would be pretty cool. I'm just trying to think of some other elementals, but I mean, there's just too many to.
I just want to see like a Rock Guardian who has a battle cry, like when you place him, that he just like hits a random target for like 5 damage.
There you go.
That could work. Just do a rock throw. We'll go Pokemon style here.
Yeah, that's no idea what that means.
I mean, it's the name of an actual ability.
Okay, sure.
It's an attack.
I'll go with you on that one.
You'll go with me anyways.
Yeah.
Well, let's continue our journey. Obviously, every week we're in Battlegrounds, and when it comes to Battlegrounds, you don't always get what you're looking for. Sometimes that triple just doesn't give you a good reward. Sometimes you just take too much damage in the early game. You suffer massive chunks of damage in one turn that you can't recover from. Or maybe you just never find that integral minion that you're looking for in regards to your build. So, as always, when things don't go according to plan, there is a fall guy in all of this here at Tavern Tales. And really amongst, the Convert to Raid community. And that is none other than Hearthstone game designer Celestalon. I'm not sure if he's still here, but he was in chat earlier. So Ed, every week some shenanery happens. Orange Jesus, he takes the wheel, drives us off a cliff, and things just barrel out of control. And my story this week is one that I had mentioned to you over in Discord, and that was the fact that I had a game this week where my warband at the end of the game consisted of 5 triples. I was primarily looking at a Divine Shield build, which was also mech oriented. So here was my warband. I had a Fel Reaver. My triples were a Deflectobot, or, Cobalt's little bro. Mekaru, which I only had for the refresh. Kaboombot, Bolvar. I had Maxna for a poison because I was facing big demons in this lobby, so I needed that. And then I tripled a Khadgar's Apprentice. So here I am, it's down between myself and one other person in the lobby. And I'm going up against Lord Jaraxxus. And I was like, oh boy, here we go. I know exactly what this guy is running. He's running big demons. He wasn't running, Soul Juggler or anything like that, but this guy had a ton of stats on board. I was sitting at 2 HP, he was at 1, and, going into that last combat, I ended up getting 3 triples to get up to 5 there. And, normally, that is a huge swing in regards to the power. One of my triples ended up discovering another minion for another triple. And, it just kept going until I couldn't play anything else. And I was feeling so good. I was like, okay, I could get 4 of my mechs refresh. I was like, okay, my Deflectobot's gonna be good. Even if he loses that Divine Shield, we'll be able to summon more stuff, and we'll get him back, and, potentially, we'll come out ahead with all of the Death Rattles in play. That didn't happen. What ended up happening was, his big demons at the end of the game were... I want to say they varied between 60 and 80 effective health. And that was just one of those moments where I just threw my hands up. I was like, you have got to be kidding me. In really, any other lobby, that would be, a guaranteed lobby win. But it's the fact that, only Celestalon, right, could find a way for someone to lose with 5 Goldens on the board at that given point. But, it comes to show, Big Demon are legit. And maybe I didn't have ideal triples for, the refreshes for the Deflectobot. But, man, that did not feel good. Normally, you're just able to coast at that point, but it didn't happen. And, of course, it just happened to go down like that after I had a huge power swing that I thought would propel me to the top. But, top 4, still a lobby win, but not a first place. But regardless, I had good RNG, bad luck against who I was going up against with, though.
Yeah, that does kind of suck. That is way better. I mean, all right, it's better than my story, but you still won.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't feel bad for you at all. So my story goes, I had to pick Ysera because I was not given anything else out of my 4 choices that was better. And I'm like, all right, well, I kind of need to go dragons. So I went dragons. 5 straight rounds where all I was given was a red Whelpling.
Nice.
5 straight rounds.
Now, are we talking the 5 at the start of the game?
And nothing, and I got no other dragons. Yep.
Nice.
So that sucked. Not gonna lie about that. But you do what you do. And you take 8th place. And you blame Celestalon and you curse his name for the bad RNG. I mean, like, I'm at tier 3
Okay.
and I can't even get anything except a red whelp, even on the normal board. So I'm like, okay, you know what? Yeah. I'm like, either I have to just get massive RNG luck after this, or I have to switch off dragons.
Mm-hmm.
And by that time, it is way too late to switch off.
Yeah, if you were already
Dragons.
taking a ton of damage, you were kind of already at that point of no return, essentially.
Yeah. And I already had a triple um a triple red whelp, obviously. Um so like yeah, it was pretty ugly. And I took 8th place. So F off, Celestalon.
See, the thing I like is really wonky about Red Whelps is, yeah, at that point in the game, you still have a fairly decent chance at getting a snipe. The downside is the stats that you have on your warband at that given point. You know, that being like it's a 2-4 for the golden iteration.
Yep.
It's not going to survive.
Nope.
So you're practically having to rely on you getting multiple snipes out of the start of combat, and if you don't, chances are you're pretty much going to lose outright. So that is a feels bad, man. And really, I mean, let's be honest. Like in the current state of Battlegrounds, if you take too much damage going into, say, turn 4 or 5, you have a really hard time at recovering. It's really easy to tell whether or not it is a top 4 or a bottom 4 finish at that point so far. Now that being said, since I have been on the alt account, just mulling over 2 choices, I figure, like, let's put some of these heroes head to head and kind of like go over our thought process in regards to who we would pick given these options. So, more times than not, we'll probably just stick with 2. Adding 4 would seem a little bit redundant when we could just break it off into 2 pairs at that point,
Mm-hmm.
So tonight, I want to look at 2 heroes in particular that have the exact same average placement of 4.61. That is Malygos, as well as a great Akazamzarak, aka Secret Mage. Or whatever you want to call him. Because it varies almost week to week at this point.
Prince of Mukamura.
There you go.
That's what I'm going with.
Alright, so when I was looking at these 2 heroes, Malygos is definitely the more popular pick out of the 2, sitting at 32.4%. Akazamzarak is only at 11.7%. He's relatively low across all heroes in that regard. Both of their hero powers do involve RNG in some fashion. One costs 0, that being Malygos, and then Akazamzarak is able to get a secret at the cost of 2 gold. So for those that can't recall their hero powers, Malygos can replace a minion with a random one of the same Tavern tier. So, you can do that with something that is in your warband. It could be a minion offering on the board from Bob. Potential opportunity at another triple, or, looking for, whatever you're looking for. Like, it's a great shot at getting, like, say, a Spawn of Inzoth early on if you're not seeing it in the shop, and you could just re-roll a 2-star minion at that point. Akazamzarak discovers a secret, and then it puts it into the battlefield. So, Ed, looking at these 2 heroes, I don't know about you, but I've definitely played about the same amount of games, I would say. These aren't 2 heroes that I normally go out of my way to play. But I have played them more on the alt account due to the fact that, I only have 2 options there. So between Malygos and Akazamzarak, who are you looking at primarily running over the other? And do you feel like one has a better advantage over the other, whether it is where you have finished in your lobbies, or, maybe you just had better luck in regards to finding the triple, or anything like that?
Well, I actually get better luck with the great Akazmarak, whatever. Just because I like it for the sole reason you get a free death. Like that's you just do. You get a free death,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not easy to come by. Like when you get stuff like that, you really just have to take advantage of it. And you can do that, and you can strategically play a lot of things. When one of your minions get attacked, give it divine shield. Well, that goes great with the divine shield build. So why not go that route? You could, you know, I don't know. What is another one? When your minions die, return it to life with 1 health.
Yeah,
That's great.
you want
That's
me to
great for beast
quickly
builds.
go over the effects of the secrets?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
just trying to pull them
So
up.
you do have the poisonous cobra spawn. There's one that is a snake trap that summons 3 1/1 minions. There's one that copies a minion upon being attacked. One that summons a minion of the same cost when it dies. The divine shield one as well. When a minion dies, it gives a random minion in your warband +3/+2. There's also the when a minion dies, return it to life with 1 HP, and that works really well with divine shield builds or like death rattles, things like that. And then of
Yeah,
course
beasts,
the most important one of all, ice
ice
block, which
block.
is immunity to fatal damage for that round.
Yeah, and the one nice thing to note with that is you could be you sometimes get those rounds where you just get bad RNGs. Celestial gods are not looking kindly upon you, and you basically just have somebody who does 20 damage to you. Well, if you're at 18 health and they do 20 damage,
Mm-hmm.
you come back the next round with 18 damage or 18 health. I mean, so it's like it's not like it's doing anything bad. Like you are getting 18 health back by doing this, and it's hard to take that for granted. I I remember when they nerfed it though.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that? That was a big deal because people were just like spamming it left and right,
Yeah,
and
I
it was
mean,
not
part of that was they were trying to negate the opportunity of getting ice block back to back.
fun. Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say it can still happen. It
Yes.
does not happen often, though.
No, it does not. So, yeah, it's one of those things where you know when you get it, it's pretty effing sweet.
Mm-hmm. And more times than
So,
not, you do end up getting ice block. And I would agree with you for the most part. I do typically pick Akasamsarek in this case because ice block is, a life. It literally is a lifesaver. I cannot tell you
mm-hmm.
how many times ice block has been the deciding factor between finishing in the bottom 4 or finishing higher. There's a lot of times where, it triggers, you stay relatively low health. We'll say like 1 to 5 in a lot of cases here. And then, 1 or 2 people get knocked out and you're like, all right, I squeaked it out. I earned it with my
Mm-hmm.
discovery. And, that's the end of it. Now, I will say, I don't mind melee ghosts. I do like the fact that the hero power doesn't cost you any gold. So you are free to use it on literally every single turn of the game. You obviously cannot do that with Akazamsarak. So
No.
I feel like at the end of the day, you're looking at about probably the same amount of RNG if you factor in finding a good secret versus finding a good minion off of the
Yeah.
hero power. Now I will say my results in regards to Battlegrounds have not been as good on Maligos, and that's primarily just due to the fact that Ice Block has been so potent that more times than not, I just end up getting 4th place. Now, I'm normally not finishing higher than that, and that's just because I'm already super low at the time, and, I'm losing an additional round when I'm trying to play catch up, but, I just squeak out a win. And, and for me, more times than not, that's going to be enough. Like, if I have someone that is relatively low on the tier, and I get top 4, I'm happy. I'm not looking for a lobby win every single time, regardless of who I'm playing. That's not feasible. But if you can find an ice block, make it to top 4, gain 5 to 20 rating or whatever it is, depending on where you're ranked, I'm happy.
Yeah, I would say with I keep want to calling him Prince, and it's not. It's a great. With him, I'm generally going to be in the top 4. Malagos, on the other hand, is the most RNG of all time, and I don't like that. So I will literally pick most other heroes than Malagos, but that's just me.
Gotcha. Except,
I don't. I'm not a like.
What about Galakron though? Because I mean, they are very similar hero powers in that case. Is that like similar sentiments for you?
For Galakron?
Yeah.
I would say Galakron's way worse. Just for the simple fact that you can only use it from Bob's Tavern, nowhere else. So like you can't upgrade your own. So it just cuts back your availability. I think that's why Galakron is so crappy.
Gotcha.
So that's me.
All right, so let's talk about something that has been building ever since we started this podcast. So for those that don't really follow the Hearthstone Battleground scene, and I mean, I'm not really going to call it a scene. It's primarily 2 of us dedicated to this mode. But, a lot of the general...
2 of us and a lot of
the Hearthstone
streamers
podcasts do also cover Battlegrounds, just not to, an hour format or what have you. So there is ourselves, Tavern Tales, and then there's also Bob's Tavern Cast. So this past Friday, I was, doing duo queues with Jay from Bob's Tavern Cast. And, I will say, like, this rivalry isn't built off of, like, any ill will towards, the other show. This is a friendly rivalry between 2 Battlegrounds podcasts.
Screw them.
Yeah, you can be the heartless one in this situation.
Yeah.
But you know what? I will say Jay was showing his true colors, and I will tell you why here in a minute. So what we ended up doing is we were doing duo queues. And we ended up playing for around 2 hours, which was enough to play 5 games that night. And, we were keeping tabs of what heroes we were playing, where we ended up in the lobby when the game was over, as well as what our net gain and net losses were in regards to our skill rating. So, at the end of the night, we tallied everything up. We averaged out where we placed in the lobby. We totaled what our gains and losses were. And we're like, okay, who comes out on top? And you know me, like, when I play something, it doesn't matter if I'm good or bad, I am hyper competitive. Regardless of what game. Except maybe, like, Battle Royales, because I know I'm just terrible at it, and I can't back up anything to say in that regard. But, usually, when you and I are duo queuing in Battlegrounds, we're probably just dicking around, we're seeing what happens. Friday night, that was not the case here. This was war. This was like a head-to-head. Podcast versus podcast, host versus host. And I came to play. And I came to win. And that's exactly what I did. So, Jay, he tried. He got Rafam 3 different times out of those 5 games. And in every single one of those lobbies, he got 7th place with Rafam.
Oof. Okay.
So
All
so
right.
so so here's where things get spicy, right? Jay and I, we're having a good time, and we end up facing each other in the lobby, which is bound to happen. And
Yes.
every single time, Ed, he plays around as normal, and then, we get to the roper, towards the very tail end of it. And then, like, I'm trying to communicate with him because we are on Discord with one another, and I'm like, hey, we're facing each other. And, he's in the zone, and he's like, oh, well, I already did everything I was going to do. So he was playing that round as normal. He wasn't, like, trying to, like, force a draw in that case, which is typically what you and I would try to do. So, like, if one of us taverns up, the other person would follow, typically. And then, we're always giving information back and forth in regards to who we're going up against, what the status of their warband is, whether it is just stats overall, what tribe they're running, what we think they're going to be going for, things like that. Nope, Jay was just like, yeah, nah, man, I'm just gonna keep doing my thing. Well, how'd that work out for you? Because didn't work so well. So
Mm-mm.
in the 5 games that we played, I will say I did have 2 terrible games. I had in order here. I got 6th, 1st, 7th, 3rd, and 1st.
Not bad.
Jay went 7, 7, 3, 7, 5. So, you can just say, like, okay, I got a lobby win. Well, actually, I got 2. But you can just say, like, okay, I won the night just because of that alone. He only got 1 top 4, and I got 2 lobby wins. So you already know, like, I had a higher average placement. But, the differential in rating was plus 106 versus minus 110, and then a placement differential. I was at 3.6, and he was 5.8. I could not wrap my head around his lack of top 4s on Rafam.
Yeah, that's kind of brutal. I mean, by kind of, I mean super brutal.
Yeah,
Like,
it's it's one of those things. I will say though, Ed, I did get Illidan in one of these games, and that was my worst finish out of my set. I was feeling pretty good there, but my early game, I did not find the spawn early. I was not getting good cards, and things just got to the point where on turn 5, I'm like, oh man, I'm either gonna get 8th or 7th, and I knew it was a done deal at that point. I'll have to go back and see what my other options were at that point, but, after a win, I was like, well, I've had good luck with Illidan, let's see if that continues, and I didn't really think much of it at the time. But, I ended up getting, Nozdormu, who was my second lowest one at 6, and my wins were with Daryl and Millhouse. Shocker there. 2 of the best heroes within Battlegrounds, and then my 3rd place was with AFK. Now, that being said, I really did enjoy the stream. It was a good time. We obviously have talked since then in his Twitch chat, and I'm always in there trolling him. And, it feels so vindicated knowing that I could just back up all of that trolling that I do in his Twitch chat whenever we duo queue now.
I mean, you have to troll them. Like, it's mandatory, isn't it?
Yeah, so something that Jay does on, like, I want to say Fridays, or like one of his normal streams, was he does minion roulette, where, people that watch him can spend their channel points, and then it, like, spins the wheel, it selects a minion, and then whenever that minion pops up in Bob's Tavern, he has to buy it and play it.
Oh yeah, no. I've seen people do that with other games. Um, End Boss
Mm-hmm.
was doing that with Valorant on who he should pick.
Okay. Yeah, I think he was doing that with, like, weapons, too. Another one that Jay was doing was, pick a hero. And that was for, like, 1,000 points. So when I did that, this was after our 5-game set. And I chose Fungal Mancer Flurgle for him. And this whole time, when he was like not reading chat at the time, he's like anyone but Flurkle, anyone but Flurkle, and I pick him. I'm like, Jay, you just have to embrace Ricky Bobby. You average like a 6th place finish. You have like a 50% shot at gaining some of that Raiden back with Flurkle. And sure enough, I was like, okay, let's look for the brand. In actuality, he did not need the brand because he kept rotating and getting battle cries, so his stats were actually pretty good compared to the field. So he never got the brand, but he still got 1st place in the lobby, and I was just like, see, I told you. He thought I was memeing him, but, when he had 3 games out of 5 that were 7th place, at that point, sometimes you have to do something that even you would consider off-kilter, and we have seen Flurkle actually making up a little bit of ground in regards to the tier list and average placement. Not that he's escaped that current tier that he's at, but we have seen him bump up a couple of slots now that people have been playing with the Felfin Navigator a little bit more. But now I'm really hoping that this could be like a weekly thing where any one of the 4 of us just dual queue with the other, and gives us additional content to talk about on the podcast on both sides there.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely up for that. Like, obviously, I'd be up for that if I'm free, which I'm staying home all the time. I'm always free. But 4 podcasts a week at this point. It would definitely have to be a weekend thing. But yeah, we should do 2v2. 2v2 them and crush them.
Or, we could always get custom lobbies, right?
Yes, Celestalon. You guys were talking about how you guys freaking want to do 8-person. Like, that is a big thing. So where is it?
Yeah, I want some more events, man. Like, it's been a little dry. Oh well, because we really only had the one.
Yeah.
And all quiet on the front since, but fingers crossed. I hope it happens sooner rather than later. But anyways, each week here we have been spotlighting a certain minion within Bob's Tavern, and today I want to look at Calicos because we have seen a lot of dragons here as of late with the most recent patch. So just to get everyone caught up to speed, Calicos is a Tavern 6 dragon that has 4 attack and 12 health, and then whenever you play a minion with Battle Cry, it gives your dragons on your board +1/+1. So, looking at the Dragon's tribe, Calicos actually has the highest play impact among the tribe. Now, that being said, there is something that is used within this build that does outpace it in that regard, which is honestly no surprise, and that is Nadina, because, she gives your entire board Divine Shield whenever she dies, and normally you're attacking with her first like you would with anything that would buff your board. So a couple of questions that you need to ask yourself when it comes to Calicos and using that particular minion. 1, how many dragons should you keep on your board to, scale your stats? A lot of the most popular dragons build consists of Nadina, who is a neutral, as we mentioned earlier. So at that point, that's 1 less that you're going to be buffing every single turn. And then there's also the question of, well, when should you really focus on only buying, like, the Battle Cry minions to also scale? There's a lot of things that you kind of have to bring into question here. And then we've also seen, some things that necessarily haven't been full dragon boards. Like, we've seen Calicos build kind of making its way into Menagerie, because you're basically looking for Battle Cries that buff particular minions anyway, and in this case you're kind of double dipping at least for the dragon tribe in itself, and then also scaling a Hydra or a Fel Reaver, or say like an Ip Mama, things like that, or even a Battle Master probably being the best one at least for the demon tribe. So when it comes to this minion in particular, Ed, I know I don't think I've seen you run too many dragons compared to some of the other tribes, but How are you feeling about the current like power status of this minion?
See, I have zero problem with him. Just because one, it's kind of like Mama Bear. Like you have to wait till Tavern 6 to get it.
Mhm.
So it's not that easy. And then you have to actually get it once you're at tier 6 or tier 5 and have a triple, and that grants it. But yeah, it's not something that really really messes. I've done it a couple times, and the trick you really have to do with it is you need a brand and you need this, and then
I don't think you need a brand necessarily.
it's having brand on board though is so powerful with
I
this.
I think as long as you're in a position where you have, say, like the Divine Shield Dragon, the Warden, as well as the Draconid Enforcer, that that synergy alone is very uh potent. And then if you like luck into a Razor Gore too, that's already scaling every turn anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like if we're talking about, okay, what would be the minimum number of dragons that you would want on the board in order to start playing Battle Cries, I don't think you want anything less than 2 or 3 at the minimum. Otherwise, you're not really in a position to start to outscale your opponents that late into the game.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. It's a fine line of what you actually are going to want to do.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't know, because you need to have, like, the one thing that I will say of not having Bran in there is if you need that extra spot to keep rotating out these battle cries.
Okay.
So like you need to basically have one open slot. That means one less dragon that would be getting buffed, and that could be an issue. So I don't know. It's a very fine line to get, and it also depends on if you're going to run non-dragons. Like if you're going to run what's her name, Nadina,
Mm-hmm.
with this,
Which you should.
which you should, but Nadina won't get buffed
Right.
because she's not a dragon.
I mean, that's fine, though, because you're giving your entire board Divine Shield, which is the whole
Exactly.
point of her anyway.
Yeah. So like you need Nadina. You probably want a Razor Gore in there. Um, Darkened Enforcer, Bronze Warden, and Twilight Emissary. That's probably what I'm thinking at is like the ideal ones to have in there, because you need to have a taunt in there.
Yeah, and I think, like, if you happen to get, like, Herald of Flame early, too, then you can really start to factor in the overkill. Now the issue with that is, like, the later in the game, like, if you pick up a second one, obviously that's just going to be a dead card. So there are a lot of situations where if you are going for, like, this Dragon Battle Cry build with a Caligos, you are going to have to defer going for certain triples in the game in order to continue to scale. And I would say like a basic rule of thumb is keep an eye on what the stats are on your enemy's boards. If you're keeping pace with it, you're probably fine to hold on for that triple potential on the next turn. But if you're falling behind the lobby, whether it's one person or multiple people, then you need to prioritize looking for those battle cries. Because at the end of the day, the bigger your stats are, the more likely you're going to be to win, and then the more hits you're able to take, or the more minions you're able to snipe with your big stats at that point once your Nadina Death Rattle triggers.
Yeah, and that's why Millhouse I think is so strong. It's like the clear cut number one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, he's powerful, but being able to buy those extra battle cries
Mm-hmm.
is huge.
Yeah, especially when your tokens only technically cost you 1.
Mm-hmm. You're just like, well, never mind then. So yeah, it's powerful, but you have to make it there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you want a good indicator of just how good Calicos is, I was looking at like the combat win rate, and I was looking at like the triples, because if you're lasting that long in the matches, chances are, you might actually have one in this case. And the Golden Calicos has a combat win rate of 80.7%. And when I was looking at all of the minions that are currently within the game, that ranks third overall at the top, only behind. And one of these is going to make a lot of sense, and the other one might be a little confusing. I will tell you, Ed, both of them are Murlocs. So at the top, we have Keen Begurgle, followed by Primal Fin Lookout. That one's a little weird to me, because normally, like, let's say you're running Murlocs and you have your Bren, you're typically selling that Primal Fin back, because, you're getting 2 Murlocs out of it. So I wonder if that's just kind of like at the point where you've already tripled your board primarily.
Maybe. And also I'm wondering if it's your win weight playing the card. Not keeping the card, playing the card. Because Primal Fin Lookout is super powerful to get that poison or to get that triple.
Yeah. Or just to get extra battle cry.
Exactly. So that is something where I can see it being that way, just being played. So that's how I'm taking it, at least.
Just to clarify, I did pull up HS replay. Combat win rate is listed as percent of the time combat is won when at least one copy of the minion is on the board.
Well, never mind. Ignore me. Yeah, that's okay then. That's weird.
So I wonder then, okay, so here's an alternative. If you're only keeping it to keep it away from another Murloc player, that could also be the case, because you don't want to give them a shot at also discovering, potentially, 2 other Murlocs.
Like that's super possible. Like that is one thing I think a lot of people don't do. Is play keep away with certain cards.
Yeah, and there are situations too, like, maybe you don't want to be too greedy and you'll just throw it back, but a lot of people maybe don't wait. Like, I will tend to do this, like, towards the very tail end, or at least, like, the rope, so to speak. So a lot of players at that point have already, gone through their refreshes, where they wouldn't have that opportunity to buy the minion at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. That still seems weird. But I don't know. The stats don't lie. We do.
Well, you do.
I feel you do as well. So.
Unless when it comes to Beat and J and Battlegrounds, that happened. I can prove it. It's on twitch.tv/tumbledrunk.
Nice.
Yeah. I should export that to the YouTube at some point.
Yeah, probably.
Or, like, I'll get a screenshot of, like, the stand-ins, right? And then I'll just frame it behind me.
I don't know. Is that frame-worthy?
No. I would not do that.
Okay. Just checking. I'm like, I don't know if that's frame-worthy.
Probably not, but, it could just be something.
You're still gonna do it?
It could just be something that, I just keep on my desk. And then, I can just hold it up to the webcam every time we're streaming duo queues, just as a reminder.
Okay. Yeah, do that.
Or, I need to get, like, a cutout L and just hold it up. One of the two.
Sure.
That works. So, and something that we have not mentioned, we do have confirmation that we do have a patch coming out.
Yes.
Now you actually told me about this earlier, and Ixar was the one who had mentioned it over on his Twitter. So the tweet reads that the second Ashes of Outland balance patch is planned for early next week. And it does say that this update will nerf Millhouse in Battlegrounds. And, they'll continue to monitor live game data and player feedback, so on and so forth. So obviously, Millhouse, we keep saying it, clear cut, number one.
Clear cut number one.
And that's not to say that some of the other elite heroes are bad, because they're not. But the differential, even at the tip top, is pretty noticeable. Whereas in, even like the upper echelon and the middle of the pack, there is a lot less differences there. There's a lot of like wiggle room for like someone to like make a jump in any given week at that point, because there's only like 0.1, 0.2 differential in regards to like the average placement. So Millhouse getting a nerf. And this is something that, we've kind of been like thinking about. And, the one tweak that they made him go from the absolute worst to the absolute best. So what's gonna happen here? Are they gonna change him and then he's gonna get like right in the middle? Is he gonna be stuck in like that hell right there with all of the other like tier 2 minions at this point?
I mean, I think ideally that's kind of where they want them to be. They all want them to be kind of like average, so more things are, playable and stuff like that. Even if it's, I don't even. But see, here's the thing: is I don't know how they're going to change him at this point. Yeah, how are they going to change him? Are they going to make refreshes cost 3 gold?
Well, that's the thing, because you're not really refreshing a lot with Millhouse anyway.
No, you're not really refreshing a lot, but when you do, maybe it would be smart to do 3 gold instead of 2 as a little bit of a punishment. I don't know. I don't think they can go back down to, start with 2 gold, because then he just goes down to the worst character in the game.
If they want to punish Millhouse, maybe they should just be like, minions cost 2 gold, refresh costs 2 gold, but your minions are silenced. So it'll be a situation where like you can't battle cry, and you won't run into situations where Millhouse is running Calicos dragons, buying all of these battle cries in the shop, and then all of a sudden having this really ridiculous board and just earning that gold back via tokens. That's not something that they would do, but
No, it is not. I'm thinking of the proper way to be like,
that's not
no.
How about no, Scott?
How about no, Scott?
I don't know. It'll be interesting.
Yeah. I'm wondering what other changes they're going to make. Because I don't know. They could just change one and that's it.
I will say this, with the rise of Murlocs here lately, I do not want to see Bran coming back in the current state of Battlegrounds to the hero
No.
pool. That would be an absolute nightmare. I feel like that would be a situation where a lot of people would just end up forcing Murlocs at that point.
I can see that, yeah. Yeah. I'm seeing so many more Murlocs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was a good, like, I'm seeing more and more, and that makes me happier. That we're getting, like, more and more diversity.
Right.
So, oh, by the way, I thought of, I saw one other card that we got that was, didn't have a class.
Okay.
Like, Unstable Ghoul. The 1/3 taunt.
Was that with the Dragons patch?
I thought it was.
I'm not sure, to be honest.
I think it was with the Dragon Patch because like the site I'm on lists them in the order that they were released. So like they have all the tier whatever, or it changed. And yeah, they have all the dragons towards the end, and he's part of them.
Okay, I'm looking at the patch notes. That is correct. It was the Dragon patch. Interesting.
So
Alright, so we did miss one.
right,
And
Tyrion would be pissed.
Well, all the Exodia players would be pissed. And there's really not that many of them, so, you know, I'm not too worried on that front.
Yeah, I wouldn't be if I was you.
But anyways, Ed, I think it's about time that we close out the tavern for tonight. So if you guys want to help us out, please do us a favor. Head on over to iTunes, leave and write us a review. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know if you have anything in mind that we could kind of like incorporate into the show, whether it is like, you know, segment focus or anything like that. We are always open ears. And of course, we do have, you know, a number of different ways how you guys can reach out to us over on the social media. So, Ed, why don't you go ahead and let them know how they can do that?
Yes. Also, make sure you reach out to us with your Blame Celestalon stories.
Absolutely. That should be top priority.
Yes. So you can email us those stories at tavernTalesPodcast@gmail.com. Reach out to us on Twitter, and that's at TavernTalesHS. We do stream live on Twitch at twitch.tv/TavernTales. We do record Thursdays live at 5 p.m. Pacific. We do have a Discord, and that's discord.me/OWLN show. You can find me personally on Twitter at Ednar83 or on Twitch at twitch.tv/Ednar. Totem, where can they find you?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at TonablyDrunkCTR, and when I'm streaming on Twitch, it is at twitch.tv/TonablyDrunk, which is been a little less frequent lately, but whenever I am streaming, chances are it's going to be in Battlegrounds, especially doing a duo queue, so hope to see you guys out there. And if you guys haven't yet, you know, since we are in a new channel, be sure that you hit that follow button so you know when we go live. So again, that is every Thursday, 5 p.m. Pacific time, each and every week. And we hope to see you guys back in the tavern for our next episode. Good luck out there, guys.
Peace out, y'all.